I think they are basically one and the same. And I'll give a quick kind of synopsis here. So it's not just a memory in your head, but when you tell a story, you're actually giving somebody else a memory. So we have Caveman 1 and Caveman 2 here. Caveman 1 tells Caveman 2, don't go near the lions or you'll die. Little Johnny went there and got eaten by a lion. Now, Caveman 2, when he sees those lions, remembers that's where Johnny died. So there was this transfer of memory between one person and another person. Now, how does that apply to fundraising? I'm going to go through the fundraising context of stories, and then we're going to open up the floor so that everybody can basically we'll try to craft some stories today around your businesses and do general Q&A. Okay, so your goal when you're telling your pitch is for the investor to be able to carry that story to the next person as a memory. This is really important. So it doesn't need to describe your business, doesn't need to have all the details. It just needs to describe the most credible aspect of your business. And then that investor will carry the most memorable part of your story going forward. An example happened to me today. I woke up, I had this very long email from a founder, 1,000 words. And in there, it says, we just closed $1 million wired, former chief revenue officer, chief marketing officer of Zynga invested. So from my perspective, that's all I took away from that giant email. Like I looked at what the business is, I looked at all these different things, but the thing that I actually remember is that they just closed $1 million and someone who is insanely credible, the CMO, CRO of Zynga, invested into this gaming company. And so that's really all I need to know, that this is a credible person. And that is the point of these stories when you're pitching. It should not say all the details of your company. It is purely used as a tool to complete your goal. Their goal when they emailed me was to get me interested in their fundraise round, and they did it. Frankly, he could have sent a one sentence email to me that just said, we just closed $1 million in the bank, CRO, CMO of Zynga invested. And I would have had the exact same reaction to his 1,000-word email because all he needed to do was just accomplish this goal. And now I, as the person that heard that story, can go unlock doors for them. So they want me to invest. Okay, I would, that's a door that they can open with that story. They want intros. Okay, that's a great way to make intros because it's a very, digestible nugget. They want to go do business development and generate interest. Like the nugget of that story is the key that will then, for the rest of this fundraise journey for them, be able to unlock all these amazing doors. Everything else is just details. So the logical question that you all should be thinking about is like, how do you find your one thing? Because not everybody has the Zynga investor yet or has the money in the bank. So this is a quote we've talked about a lot. I can't emphasize it enough how important it is. The quote goes as follows. If you want me to give you a 60-minute presentation, I'm ready now. If you want me to give you a 30-minute presentation, I'll need a week to prepare. And if you want me to give you a 5-minute presentation, I'll need a month to prepare. All that's saying is that it takes real time to actually figure out what is the golden nugget in your story and to craft it in a way that is effective for investors. So this is how I use the golden nugget technique for my last business. This is how people, when I would get introductions from investors, when I would reach out to people, when I would start my pitch, this was the golden nugget I would always say. It's one of the craziest ideas ever. If it works, we're going to make billions. And then I would back up this statement by talking about how insane this idea is and how unlikely it is to work, but all the while maintaining like, if this works, we will make a lot of money. And so that wasn't something that I just came up with one day. It was something that I observed over and over as I pitched more people. People would say this idea is crazy and they would reject me. And so after I got a bunch of rejections for the idea being too crazy, I realized maybe that can actually be my nugget, and I turned it around, and that became basically my one sentence that I used for 2 years, this one sentence. In order to get to that one sentence, I did a lot of iterations on slide decks. And this is the method I use in order to create my pitch decks. And so I'm going to go through an example of my old pitch deck, and basically talk about exactly how I go about creating these decks, because it's kind of the reverse maybe of what some people do, or what I see a lot of people do. Okay, so you do not start like this. You don't start with, all this information on your deck. It's not the best way to get to your story. The way that I start is like this. No more than 8 words per slide. And I spend a week or two going through and creating my deck with no more than 8 words per slide, a 10-slide deck. And so this example is Zoom captured the zeitgeist of 2020. Video conferencing established the foundation for growing markets, but there are fundamental drawbacks to video. The world's starting to notice. We're pioneering this new behavior, and our early adopters feel the benefits. That is essentially a run-on sentence that goes across all of my slides. And then only after I'm really happy with the flow and the structure of the story do I then support that story with the visuals and the data. And so it is very much, starting with the story and then supporting it with all of the other things that you need in a deck. In this book, 6 Secrets to Raising Capital, Bill talks about how no investor will ever read your business plan. I'm quite confident that is very true. At least in the first email, they're going to go through your deck so quickly, and they're going to read the headlines. And unless it is very obvious of what the business is and how the story, should captivate them, they're just going to discount it. They really don't spend a lot of time looking at these things. It's a sad truth that I found. So the final point here is, once you're on those calls with investors, how do you actually tell the story live? Energy and engagement are probably the 2 most important things that I try to focus on these investor calls. So for many years and many times, I would do power poses before my investor calls. I don't know if anyone's seen that TED Talk, but essentially it's the idea that like you make yourself as wide as possible, and it's supposed to bring confidence into your body. Yep, Josephine's got it. There you go. And so you do all these different poses that make you feel confident and energetic before you go into the meeting, or you chug a Red Bull, whatever it is. Like, you got to do something that is going to get you hyped up for these meetings. Because energy is so important, this is another reason to do that pitch pocket concept that I was talking about. So rather than like me have to flip into product mode and then flip out of product mode and go do a pitch, and then flip into team management mode and then go do a pitch, it was like, okay, I'm pitching investors on Friday. I'm pitching investors on Thursday. And then that's where I would schedule all of my investor pitches. And that way, when I woke up, I knew, like, from the moment I got out of bed, I need to bring an insane level of energy so that I can go crush all these investor pitches, as opposed to, having a high and then a low and then a high and then a low. So that is another reason to do the pitch pockets, because it allows you to basically focus your energy into one day, because you really got to come with a lot of it. And then the other thing is the engagement. When I was doing the General Catalyst Scout Fund, I would listen to X number of pitches each week. And like the number of founders that just ramble for 9, 10, 15, not exaggerating, 15 minutes of just talking without asking any questions. Like, there's a high percentage of founders that do this. I'm also very, guilty of doing this as well in many conversations, but it is really important that you are reading the investor, looking at their body language. Or even, for example, when I do these big public events we've done, like the Nico one with 100+ people, I'll look at the attendee number. And if I see people are leaving, I switch up what I'm doing, and I try to, change up kind of the general focus of where we are. So those are the best 2 things I focus on when I'm doing the story live. In summary, think of your story as the key to important doors. That golden nugget in your story is what will ultimately unlock everything. All the other parts of your story and business model are just details. A good story is a memory. It creates a memory in someone else's head, so that when they think about certain things, they think about your story, and they can also pass on that memory to other people. Your story should be super simple, and you should tell your story with energy. If there's one thing you walk away with, try to understand this point that a story is your ability to give someone else